We begin with the big story from the country's capital. The Ad Hoc Committee looking into concerns around national security will conduct its work at Kgoši Mampuru Correctional Services facility in Pretoria from this morning until Friday. The committee was established to investigate allegations made by KZN top cop Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the justice system. Now, the reasons for it to conduct its work in a correctional facility this week is to question one of the key witnesses in businessman Brown Mokgotsi, who's currently in custody. But today, focus will be on the SAPS's Chief Financial Officer in Puleng Dimpane, who's set to begin her testimony at 11 o'clock. Watching developments for us is SABC News reporter Bulelani Philip, who joins us now live from Pretoria. And Bulelani, we're expecting that controversial contract linked to Ket Matlala to be in sharp focus today.
Good morning to you, Ayanda, and to the viewers at home. Of course, as you've correctly put it out, is that the focus for today is going to be the South African Police Service Chief Financial Officer, Puleng Dimpane, who's going to testify regarding the cancelled contract, which amounts to 360 million rand that was awarded to Vusimuzi Ket Matlala's company, Medicare 24. Of course, you'll recall last week the Chief Procurement Officer did admit under cross-examination that the contract was awarded irregularly, and of course a Chief Financial Officer must come and account as to how did it happen that when there were red flags that the South African police still went ahead and awarded this contract. Of course, members of parliament will be keen to understand whether was there any outside influence in terms of that decision making according to the police. So that will be the focus for today's proceedings, and as you've indicated, proceedings are expected to begin at 11 o'clock this morning here at the Kgoši Mampuru Correctional Facility. And of course the big day is going to be tomorrow, where Vusimuzi Ket Matlala is expected to testify before the committee. This is the first time that the committee has actually sat outside the precinct of Parliament. Vusimuzi Ket Matlala had indicated earlier that he was willing to travel to Parliament in Cape Town, but of course one of the conditions that he wanted, he did not want the police to escort him, saying that he feared for his life. But the committee has actually taken a cautious approach and in fact came to him and to hear his side of the story. As part of the People's Parliament, there will be an allocation of about 290 seats of the public, of people who wanted to follow the proceedings live here at Kgoši Mampuru. And as I've indicated earlier, proceedings, Ayanda, are expected to get underway at 11 o'clock. You can follow us on our social media platforms for the rolling coverage of this hearing of the Ad Hoc Committee. Ayanda.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many legs to where we are insofar the work of the committee is concerned. Yesterday, I spotted a statement from the EFF suggesting that Julius Malema has written to the Speaker of Parliament to raise concerns about the resources constraints that they're facing as a committee.
Most definitely, I mean, that statement comes as no surprise, because even the committee itself has acknowledged that it might have capacity constraints. The EFF pointing out that there may be administrative and investigative capacity constraints. Hence, it has written to National Assembly Speaker Thoko Didiza to come and intervene. The other issue that also is a headache for the committee is that the committee has written to the National Assembly Speaker seeking an additional extension of its work. The allocated time was actually supposed to initially to be at the end of October. They got a month extension, but again they've realized that the work that is facing them is going to be too much, and the extension that is sought because the committee's work is supposed to come at the end of this month. And again, the committee last night resolved that they want 6 additional witnesses that they want as part of the investigation. So they awaited the decision of the Speaker whether the committee will be granted the extension or not, and whether the Speaker does not respond by the end of this month, then it leaves the committee in limbo. Ayanda.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you consider that we've only got a few days left of the month. In fact, less than a week or so. There's no ways the committee would have wrapped up its work. Speaking about those additional witnesses, I wonder, Bulelani, if you're able to take us through who some of these names or who some of these people are, as, of course, this commission tries to get to the bottom of those claims made by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
Well, Ayanda, one of the key witnesses that has been awaited by the committee is that of a crime intelligence boss, Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo, who is actually one of the people who is the backbone as part of the allegations that were raised by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Another person of interest who just completed his testimony last week, Brown Mokgotsi, is also one of the key witnesses that the committee would like to hear from, as well as Paul O'Sullivan, who has actually been fingered quite on a number of occasions around his influence in the criminal justice system. And the other person is Robert McBride, a former IP boss, who's also now working for the State Security Agency. So those are some of the key witnesses that the committee would like to hear before it concludes its work, because the committee would want to make binding decisions and recommendations and policy proposals in terms of how the criminal justice system can be improved to ensure that there is accountability, not just at the highest level, but also at a political level in terms of the ministers that oversee the work of the criminal justice system. Ayanda.
Certainly, and of course we shouldn't forget that Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi at some stage is also meant to come back before this committee to answer a few clarity-seeking questions. So there's a lot to get through, and I don't imagine the committee will be able to do all of that before the end of November.